Hey everyone, welcome to the first Fedimint call in the Bitcoin design community. Hope I said that correctly. My name's Mo, and it is the 13th of April, 2023. We are on Fedimint call number 0. We have Justin here and Pete as well. I'll hand it over to you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I think it actually should maybe be call number one. We did a call with Steven about 8 months ago or something, where we did like a little Figma whiteboarding session. But maybe that's ancient history. So uh, yeah, so thanks for joining. So I had like a thing in particular that I want to talk to about today, and that is our like admin apps for Fedimint, right? We have two specific experiences that could use some design work. They've gotten some engineering work so far, so they're kind of ready to build an app. And so yeah, that's what spurred me to reach out. And I think we have some back-end developers, some front-end developers. But we don't really have any design help, and we would need it. And so yeah, yeah. But before we go too far, does anyone would just want to kind of introduce themselves? Because there's a lot of new people here. I know a handful of the people who participate in Fedimint, but I don't know any of the designers. So I'll just start with myself. I'm Justin. I've been contributing to Fedimint for about 10, 11 months now. I also work at a company called Fedi that is building an application on top of Fedimint, and that's my story. I'm the head of engineering there, and yeah. Anybody else want to go? Should I point at somebody?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm Christoph. I do all kinds of things in Bitcoin design. I know a few things about Fedi and just here to support the project in the process.
Cool.
I'll go.
Okay, I'll call. Can I call someone? Can one person call the next person?
Yeah.
Okay, I will call on, let's say, Mo. Total surprise.
Let's play throw the tennis ball around the room. Cool. So Mo here also from the Bitcoin design community, and also here to help out with anything, understanding your users, getting to know anything research related, and just help out in general. Yeah.
Jose, you want to go?
Sorry.
Yeah, do you want to get someone else?
I'll throw the ball to Jose.
Okay, thanks, Mo. Hi, everyone. I've been looking and following what you are doing great on the design community. I sometimes share things and I quite follow all the work that you do. But I've been a bit away and busy, but since a while, I wanted to jump in a project, as I was mentioning earlier to Justin, and I found this quite interesting, so I thought I'm going to jump in the call and let's see if I can give a hand. And I will ping now Kitman. I don't know if I say it right.
Yeah, that's right. I'm one of the developers of Fedimint. I started around the same time Justin did, so we've both been about a year on the project. I am more focused, I guess, like on the open source side of things, and also I've done a lot of work with the setup, how the setup works, which will be an important part of the UI, so I can help describe how that works. And I'm also K on this call. That's my other monitor, so we can skip that person. But yeah, I'll call Wisdom.
Hi everyone, I'm Wisdom. I'm a product designer basically. I'm also in the Bitcoin design community. I was one of the persons who built out the Android version for the Bitcoin UI kit. I mean, Christoph. Hello, Christoph. Um, so yeah, I got this call from Mo. Mo actually told me about the call when I reached out to her regarding getting to know if there's anything to do in the community. I've been away for a while because I'm currently working with a company that does stuff around the blockchain for central banks. So I've been off the community for a bit. and I just returned now to know how I can help out. So yeah, I'm open. I'm open to working with you guys. So yeah, and I'll be calling on Peter.
Okay. Hello, good day, everyone. My name is Peter. I'm a product designer also, but I'm an applicant for Summer Bitcoin. So yeah, I just saw the link from the community, so I chose to hop on. Thank you very much. Sorry, could anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. I think let me call on Yash. I don't know if that's right pronunciation. Yash Agawa.
Yes, so Agarwal. I'm from India. I'm an applicant in the Summer of Bitcoin for 2023. I'm looking forward to working on the accessibility wallet project, and I'm just joining on this in this meeting to learn from all the designers and developers here. Thank you. Um, and I'll call Yashraj if he's left.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Yash. I mean, I thought we all Yashes were like, we had some sort of a solidarity that we would not call each other out. But okay, here I am. Hi, everyone. My name is Yashraj. I'm a contributor to the Bitcoin design community. I recently worked on PayJoin. Yeah, and I'm excited to see what Fedimint is doing, and I just want to, yeah, and I'm excited to see how this call goes as well. So happy to be here.
I think Isaac is the only one left.
So, hi everyone. My name is Isaac. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm also an applicant for Summer Bitcoin 2023. I've been contributing to Fedimint for some few weeks now, and yeah, I'm looking forward to working on the project and specifically the admin UI frontend.
And Kashash just joined. Do you want to give us a short introduction, Kashash? You don't have to.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. So I'm Keshav. Like I'm currently in fourth year from IIT Kanpur, India, and like I have applied for Summer of Bitcoin, and yeah, eager to learn about this more. So like I have been doing this UI UX design since my second year from last 2 years. So and I've done multiple internships and uh, okay. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so let's do it this way. So we got 43 minutes left. So I want to give a short introduction of like what Fedimint is, and then I want to give like a little preview of the two of kind of what we have so far in terms of like the these two UIs that we're thinking about, and then but also like I want to leave it kind of open in case you guys have questions or anything. So yeah, I'll just do it really quick. So basically, what Fedimint is it's a way for a group of people to hold Bitcoin on behalf of like other people. So it's a way to create a custodian that could be multiple entities, right? So in a town, you could have like 5 people who are kind of trusted and who are unlikely to collude with each other and run off with the money. They would come together and they basically create like a multi-sig. If you know the word multi-sig, it's like a shared custody of Bitcoin across a number of keys. And if those keys are different people, then it's across a number of entities. And so that's fundamentally what Fedimint is, but it's a little more. The unique thing about Fedimint is that this multi-sig is basically like online and it's programmable. So it can enforce all kinds of rules that it wants with regarding what to do with the Bitcoin. And so there's two interesting ones that exist right now. One of them is it's called eCash. Basically, it's a way to have when you have a custodial system, you need to give an IOU out, right? And usually the IOU is just like a line in a database, right? It's an account. You have an account number, and this is how much is in there. And then so the custodian knows everything you have, right? They know all your transactions. They know the complete history, and that's not ideal from a privacy point of view. And so what Fedimint implements these kind of the rules around the multi-sig. They have an IOU system called eCash, which is very private. So when you get IOUs, and then when you go to spend them, the federation can't link them, right? So the people custodying the Bitcoin do not know your transaction history. They don't know how much you have, and most importantly, they can't specifically censor individual users because they can't identify them. So it's like a kind of a more censorship-resistant form of custody. And also, there's a Lightning integration, right? So we're able to integrate with Lightning, have a Lightning node come to the federation, and facilitate payments inside and outside. So what's really neat is, in the federation is this multi-sig. That's just the word. And so what's really neat is, like, from the outside world, this is basically a bank would just look like a Lightning node, and every once in a while the Lightning node might change, and so it's kind of like from the outside world, it doesn't really look like it exists, which is kind of neat. The Lightning node is an interface to the rest of the world. So yeah, with that, that goes my short little elevator pitch. Any kind of questions about that at a high level? You can discuss for a few minutes.
Yeah, Yashraj here. I just had a quick question about this. So, so when you say like eCash, like I get the Xiaomi eCash aspect of it, wherein the identities are hidden, but this is all like denominated in Bitcoin. I mean, there is no other kind of a currency unit, or is there?
So the Fedimint as it exists now is all Bitcoin, and so like, yeah, the idea is every unit of eCash represents one unit of this, like one sat of eCash represents one sat that is in the multi-sig wallet of the federation. And so it's 100% backed at all times, right? And so if Fedimint ever notices that it has too much, if it's not 100% backed, if it's 101% or 99, it'll just stop running. It'll stop and say, like, I'm not fully backed right now, and that's something Hitman built, actually. But you could use Fedimint. I mean, you could use Fedimint with Ethereum. So that's one interesting thing with. I mean, I'm not suggesting this, but one thing that's interesting about Fedimint is that it's very modular. So you can add modules to do different things. So if you wanted to do something with, if all of a sudden a better cryptocurrency than Bitcoin came along, you could use Fedimint with that as well. But unlikely. But there are a lot of interesting applications inside Fedimint that haven't been inside Bitcoin that haven't been built yet. So that's what's exciting about the modularization, the modularity of Bitcoin of Fedimint. Any other questions?
Hi, Justin. Thank you for the presentation. Can you explain a bit about how these modules can work, or how these are, or what module do you mention? What kind of this element are?
What do you mean model exactly?
Modules? You mentioned earlier that you can add like modules.
Oh, modules.
Yeah.
Modules, yeah. Yeah, so I mentioned, like, Fedimint is like a multi-sig that is kind of programmable. You can have rules around it, right? And so if you want to make a new module, basically, very briefly, that module will have like a sort of a transaction. And if you know Bitcoin, they have like inputs and outputs. So it's just like a type of transaction. And so you at a very high level, you need to define what makes that transaction valid, right? So here's an example of a module I built at a hackathon a couple weeks ago. We just wanted to build a simple one in one day. And so what we did was we made it was kind of like a lottery, right? So for any given block height, you could deposit funds. You could deposit funds into basically a contract for that block height, and everyone who deposited in for that would be like in a lottery. And then when the block was mined, it would use the hash to choose a winner between every single sat that was put into that contract. It would choose the winner, and then whoever owned that sat would be able to pull the money out, right? So that's like an example of a module. There's a couple. That's like a simple one. There's a couple like fancy ones that have been developed. Somebody made something called a stability pool, which is a way to have like price locked Bitcoin with using contracts, like contracts for difference, to like lock to only have Bitcoin, but using like an oracle for the Bitcoin price. You could lock it to like a fiat denominated value or like a soybean denominated value, whatever you want. And another one that's really interesting is which Kitman is kind of the mastermind of, is the idea of a mining pool, right? Like make a module that would act as a mining pool, basically like a custodian for the custody side of a mining pool that would be more decentralized. And in the event that Bitcoin mining was kind of cracked down on, that could be very valuable. So just a couple ideas.
I think from the design perspective, the modularity is a bit complex because it needs to carry over to all the user interfaces. So like if we added, say, a module that supports something that's pegged to US dollars because people desire that, then we would need a way to display that optionally within the UI. I don't know the best way to do that. Like maybe there's different tabs that each one representing a module. And similarly with the setup, you might want to set up when you set up your federation, you might want to choose which modules you're setting it up with, because some people might want like an account-based module that actually keeps track of like who owns what, and others will prefer just the eCash where it's fully anonymous. So this adds a lot of complexity to the code, both in the back end and the front end, as well as the design.
Does it make sense to hop into the UI? Would that make it more clear how some of these things work?
Yeah, so let me show you the one, like we don't have a lot of UI right now. And, but I'll show you like the experience of setting up a federation. That makes sense? So this would be, so this was, Stephen helps create the initial design here. And Stephen, what is his last name?
Delorme.
Delorme, yeah, Stephen Delorme. So he helped create this initial design, and then a couple of us kind of implemented it very quickly. The UI is not very good, and we're like, but this is kind of how to set up a federation. So you got these like welcome screens. So I'm going to set up a two-person federation. So the Bitcoin is custodied by two people, which is just the kind of the smallest case where you can get the idea. But I think many of them would be a little larger. So you get this
Sorry,
screen.
can everyone? Are you sharing something?
No,
I can't see it, but I have a very slow connection. Might just be okay.
No, I'm not sharing. I'm so used to always being sharing on these calls that I just assume I am. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. So yeah, I think in the Bitcoin design community, I think we posted the link to the original Figma here in Slack. If you just look in the Fedimint channel, I think that after that first post, I think there's a post to the Figma here. And so this is for creating a federation. So it's like you have to create a multisig. It creates a multisig behind the scenes. And then it also kind of creates some public keys.
Sorry, am I the only one who cannot see what's being shared?
Can you see it?
I don't think I can see what's being shared. Are you sharing something?
I can see it, but sometimes the video turns off if you're in low bandwidth mode.
Okay, cool. I'll proceed.
I can't see it, but it tells me I'm in my bandwidth. It's low, so but it's fine. I think I've seen it before.
Okay, cool.
That
So,
might explain it for others.
yeah, Jitsy's nice, but it's not perfect. Okay, yeah, so we'll set up a 2 of 2 federation. And so, yeah, it's kind of creating a 2 of 2 multisig, and then you have to create like some shared public keys for like this eCache system, stuff like that. That's what's happening behind the scenes. And you also, these would be like kind of 2 different servers. So see over here on the left, like let's say that's on someone's Raspberry Pi in the closet. And then this one is the other person, and they have it's on AWS or some other server, right? So these would be running on servers, 2 different people, right? So we'll call this one on the left side Alpha, we'll call this one Bravo. So you go in and you get this kind of intimidating UI with a bunch of stuff. You can see that developers built this. So a lot of them are sort of like networking details. So these are like, this address is, these 2 addresses are basically like, how can Alpha and Bravo talk to each other? Because they have to enforce these rules. So it's like a consensus, right? They have to come to consensus. So how can they connect to each other? And this one is like, well, let's say Mo is a user, right? How does Mo connect to Alpha? Or how does Mo connect to Bravo? That's what these addresses are. So these are, like, ideally, these are hidden from the user. And like whenever this is deployed, these are kind of auto-generated, and we pre-fill these now, and we should just hide them, but sometimes they're wrong, and it's nice to be able to tweak them. And then there's a couple other details, like, what kind of Bitcoin node are you going to use? So we have a couple that we support, like Electrum protocol and Bitcoin D. What network you're going to use? Is it Regtest, mainnet, testnet? And then this one is kind of interesting. Basically, how many blocks need to be confirmed before we issue one of these IOUs, right? And so the default now is 10, which is kind of a lot. And but this is kind of interesting because this one is actually from one of the modules. We have an on-chain wallet module. So some Fedimint deployments might not even have this, right? So this is kind of one of the things that, from a design point of view, eventually, like some of this will have to be toggled off at certain times and stuff like that. So, but that's something we can discuss. So I'm just going to run through this. I've done this a million times. So we'll call this, so you need like a name. So let's say Alpha, Bravo, and we'll call this Bitcoin design. So this is like the name of the user kind of, and this is a name for the federation. So these would be the same. So this is like the name of the group. How many guardians? So we'll have 2. These are all pre-filled. And let's use Regtest. That's just like the test network that this little setup thing is using. So both of these get like a string, like a kind of identifier. And then the idea is they would kind of copy this and share it in like a secure chat, like Signal or something. And yeah, we have some ideas for how to improve this, which Kitlin can speak to later. And then so like, Alpha takes their string, puts it in Signal. Bravo gets it, pastes it into their UI. This would be like kind of happening synchronously. Bravo gets their string, pastes it into Signal, and Alpha gets it, pastes it in here. All following so far? Any questions so far? Cool. And then you go next. And this is when you cross your fingers and you pray to Satoshi that our code works. Cool. And so now actually under this behind the scenes, yeah, this is a little in depth, but it's kind of interesting. So now we're running a consensus algorithm, right? You can kind of see what they're agreeing on is they're agreeing on the block height. They're trying to figure out what is the current block height, and they're agreeing it's 92. So this is Regtest. It's like a fake little thing, so it's only 92 blocks. So yeah, you can. So like this is now we have like this federation that's running, and so user clients could be able to connect to it using this string. And at this point, we don't have a lot of user clients yet because Fedimint is it breaks a lot, right? Like it doesn't break. It's not. We're just changing rapidly. So if you make a client, it'll be outdated in like a month. So there's one like called Fedimint that was pretty nice some time ago. A friend of mine made. It's pretty neat. So if you're interested, you could check that out. But yeah, so that's the end of this little demo. So now people could deposit Bitcoin in and send money around. And if there was a Lightning node, send it over the Lightning Network. But I'm going to discuss that a little bit next. We have another thing I'll show. Let's just discuss this. Anybody have questions about this or comments? Yeah, so this is like the thing that we have like a very basic setup experience. It's not very great because there's a few things that are kind of annoying. Everybody has to kind of type in the same details, right? So there's a lot of risk of somebody typing in the wrong stuff. It's kind of demanding of the user. And it's kind of an overload of information. And it's also not very pretty. And lastly, at the last step, right, when we get it running, it only shows us this one thing, like how to connect. There's all kinds of interesting like statistics and stuff, or there's all kinds of an admin side of this that doesn't exist at all, right? Like how much Bitcoin is in my federation? You know, how many transactions are there? Can I have like a graph of what it is? Am I going to run out of disk space soon? Stuff like that would be really interesting to explore going forward. And we have like nothing there. So I think this is like a really, yeah, this side of things, like when it's actually running would be an really interesting project for you guys to look into.
So I could explain kind of what direction we want to go in with the setup UI if you think that's helpful.
Yeah, go for it, Kidman.
Yeah, so like what Justin just demoed was our existing setup UI. We're planning on making many changes to it. Because right now, as he said, like every guardian's like one of the members of the Federation. Every guardian who goes through this setup process needs to ensure that they're passing in the correct information, or else it's going to fail somewhere along the way. There's also the requirement for everyone to verify that the config gen was performed correctly for security reasons. So like we don't want to have a situation where a malicious guardian could try to manipulate the setup process in such a way that they have more control over the Federation than the other guardians do. And so I think to solve some of these issues, we wanted to move towards a leader-based setup. And so the way that would work is one of the guardians would be the one who's configuring these parameters. And that guardian would send these parameters to the other guardians, who would be the followers. The followers would double check that looks right to them. And then they would proceed with the config generation. And then after config generation runs, there would need to be some kind of challenge step. And the challenge step would be something like, you have to communicate with all the other members of the Federation out of band. It could be over Discord or something. And each member would need to post some kind of information. It could just be like a string of text, or it could be emojis, or it could be something like that, just to ensure that everyone has generated the same config. So we need we don't want to make we want to make setup as easy as possible, but we also need to have some kind of challenge at the end so that we can verify that no one's cheating.
Cool, thanks for that, Kidman. Yeah, so any questions about this before? There's one other little UI I want to show you, but yeah, any kind of questions about this? I'm sure there's you probably have so many questions that you can't ask them all, but
I I do have one question. In terms of who's actually using Fedimint at the moment, do you guys have like a rough idea of who's using it?
Yeah, so it's still like pre-release, like we're getting really close to kind of releasing it. So at the current moment, it's mostly developers, and at Fedi we have a couple small test communities that we've tested it with, but it's not really being used widely yet because it's not it hasn't reached like kind of an initial release yet. But we're getting really close to that, and kind of one of the we're very close to that. So the coming months we'll start doing that, and I expect initially it'll be a lot of like sort of developer type people because that's what happened with or tinkerers, hobbyists, not developers, hobbyists, right? That's kind of what happened with Lightning. So hopefully it can be a similar thing where you have like a phase where it's kind of hobbyists, and it's pretty easy to set up, so you can just try it on the weekend, and that's kind of what we're hoping for. So, but yeah, right now it's not a lot of usage just because it's not ready yet. We've done some like at Fedi, we've done some like for like conferences and stuff like that. We'll set it up and have everyone use it for a couple days and learn a bunch. But it's not quite ready to. It's not quite ready for prime time yet.
Gotcha.
But it's getting very close, which is exciting from the design point of view. We've been working slaving away for a year now, and it's getting there.
Yeah, we have about 20 minutes left, so maybe it's good to spend the next 5 to 10 minutes on the second part and then just go into talking about what you would like from a design perspective, what you're looking for, what type of designer, if designers have questions, how to start, conversations to have, these types of things. We might not have enough time to go into very detailed questions about some of the designs you showed.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's your call.
Another thing on that. Yeah, I'm very happy. I think that's probably a good way forward, and I'm very happy to schedule something with anybody who's interested in the future, because we could really use this help. Like and I will, I'll take time to answer any questions in the future. So the one other thing we kind of skipped over was how the Lightning integration works, right? So the idea is the federation, let's say, could have 1,000 people in it or 10,000 people. Maybe, with Fedimint, it probably will over 1 million people would probably be too much. That's like in the current, what we're looking at, like the size would be, 1,000, 10,000 would be really good now, and in the future, 10,000 or 100,000 might be, good. So that's kind of the size of the federation, and or 100, these would be good numbers. And then, so one interesting thing is you can have one Lightning node serve all those people, right? Or so it's kind of like a scaling solution for the Lightning network in one sense, because it will be very difficult to give everyone a Lightning node, if only just how many on-chain transactions it would take to open everyone channels. And so that's one aspect of Fedimint. And so the one thing is, how do you run that? Who's going to run that Lightning node, and how do they do it, right? And so this is like a very simple mintgate.vercel.app. This was developed by Fedimint contributor Jodam and Igbo Pharaoh from the Fedimint community. So this is so this kind of like it doesn't actually work yet. It's all static data, but you can play around with it. And so this would be the idea is this person is running a Lightning node, and then they want to connect to a federation. And they want to facilitate Lightning payments on behalf of the users inside the federation, the Fedimint, and they want to make a fee on that, right? So they're like a profit-seeking actor, so they can take like a small fee on every transaction, and so what they would do is that, remember this connection string, this thing we got at the end. If they want to join a new federation, they just come over here and like paste that in, and it doesn't work yet, but that would go hop down, and you have one of these now. So you have like you've joined a mint, and now you can, in order to facilitate payments on behalf of users, you need to have a little of these eCash tokens. So you could deposit some Bitcoin into the federation, so you have a balance at the federation. So they're basically kind of like they just convert between the Federation's Bitcoin and the Lightning Network Bitcoin. That's kind of what they do. And so you can deposit, withdraw, stuff like that. And there's kind of more stuff that would be interesting here. Like it'd probably be interesting to show your channels and show stuff like that. And in the future, have some automated swapping back and forth between the Lightning Bitcoin and the Federation Bitcoin. And so that's what this would be. This would just be the how to administer the Lightning node that serves the Federation. Any questions here or on both of them?
So I think just to kind of take a step back, like at a high level, like what these UIs, we basically what we kind of need in terms of UIs. We need a UI that's going to manage something called the Lightning Gateway, which is what Justin just showed. We need a UI that's going to facilitate the setup of the Federation, which was the first thing we demoed. And then we need an admin UI, which is after the Federation's already set up, monitoring the status, which we don't have anything for that right now. And additionally, we also don't have any design for like an open source mobile app. So there's a lot of different areas for design. I think probably like 4 different things. And then, this is all like pretty complicated, a lot of information probably coming at once. So if you guys want us to like break down like what the functionality is, or like, I don't know the best way that you'd like us to work with you, to kind of like tell you like what we think the workflows should be and what kind of information we would need to display.
Yeah, that's definitely a big project and probably also a very long-term project, going through all of this. So you probably also want to split out creating a design system, because you don't want, create your buttons in typography for the onboarding and a different one for the admin and all of that. You want to have like one nice UI kit or design system that then all of these other individual UIs then use or just implement. So that's probably one thing. And it seems like designing the onboarding might be a good starting point, because that kind of sets the tone for everything else in the user experience. And it's probably also really crucial. If people can't set this thing up correctly, it doesn't even matter if they have a Lightning node afterwards or not, right? And designing onboarding is usually also a good thing for designers to start with, because they basically have to learn how this thing works in the process and also kind of explain it in the design that they create. So maybe that's kind of a good starting point. But yeah, I think that's a very good discussion there to have about how to structure this in the right way, because it can become really intimidating for, let's say, just a single designer to come in and do it all at once.
Yeah,
what questions do others here have?
I'm seconding Christoph on because we work together also on wallet scrutiny as well, and it's definitely good to sort of bucket, because I've made some notes here. So the one would be the UI that manages the Lightning Gateway. The second one would be Fedimint setting up the Federation. The third one would be an admin UI when the Federation's already created, and the third one would be possibly in the future mobile app. So starting with the onboarding of maybe setting up the Federation, was that what you guys had in mind?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. That's probably the easiest, the workflow that is best defined in our minds. And we already kind of have examples of something working. But I agree that like it's important to make sure that everything looks consistent.
Which also simplifies development. Then you don't end up with different implementations of buttons and all of this stuff.
Yeah,
what question do other designers here have? Anyone interested in, or I mean, even if you don't want to commit to this project, like, what questions do you have about the design work or the project or the team?
Well, jumping. The main question that I had is something that you already mentioned, Crystal. No, that on my case was like how to approach and define like some steps to approach the work. And I totally agree that something like the onboarding, it will help us like to understand how everything works and get the most of the context that we can get from Justin and the rest of the team. Yeah, I have I took a few notes, but the questions are more like a work question, so it will be like jump into it and start working with them. Yeah. I will be interested to collaborate.
Yeah, one question I have is like how, so we have like the developers and Fedimint hang out in Discord. We have a Discord, right? And the designers of the Bitcoin design community have a Slack and they hang out in the Slack. What do you think is the best forum for doing the collaboration itself? Like, should it happen on the Slack side or our Discord side?
Well, the Bitcoin design is also moving to Discord. So it will
okay.
also be in the at least in the same application or servers, I guess.
Yeah.
So it depends a bit. There can also be a crossover, like if there's one designer working on this project, then just hang out in the Fedimint Discord. Otherwise, there would be just a very quiet channel, that everyone has to double check. But then the calls could still be cross-posted, and you could kind of post in Bitcoin Design for feedback, but the majority of the work happens in the Fedimint Discord or so. Yeah, so I would just focus on, I would just start in the Fedimint Discord and then just cross-post a little bit and see how that works out. And once you get started, I feel like the team, whoever works on this together, will figure out what the best collaboration flow is.
Cool. That sounds good.
I think one thing that I could do, once we have figured out what channel we're going to communicate in, I could provide a bit more detailed write-up of, I guess, how the setup would flow. Not necessarily like, which screens there would be, or like I would kind of leave that up to you guys, but just in terms of like what needs to happen from a functionality perspective.
Yeah, so it sounds like going with what Christoph and Mo were saying about starting the admin or the setup experience would be a good first bite of this, and I think me and Kevin agree, and it's good that I think that's a good consensus. How would we want to approach that as a project? What would be kind of the next steps to try to get that ball rolling from your point of view?
So I'll go back to, when was it, a year and a half ago? This reminds me of the JAM, the Join Market Web UI project, where it's also the dev team came in that we want to build this web UI for Join Market, but we kind of want to have a design process there. And Gigi was leading that, and OpenOms was in there, and it was really good. We ended up with a project process where I think every 2 weeks we had a call, like a community call. And that's where we kind of discussed everyone's progress. And for the first 5 weeks, we kind of had a schedule laid out. And everyone kind of worked on the side a little bit. And then we had these calls where kind of everyone presented their work. I kicked off the design work there with just taking the Bitcoin UI kit and just messing with things, just kind of laying things out, just kind of, loosely exploring based on, the material that was provided and my understanding. And everything was pretty much wrong, but that was fine. It led to lots of really good discussions. And then in the calls, I presented some stuff, and then the team showed some command line things and some other things, and it was kind of a back and forth. And then over the first 3, 4, 5 calls, everything kind of solidified a little bit more. Wisdom, I cannot hear you. If others can hear, Wisdom, let me know. If not, Wisdom, please rejoin Jitsi. It does that sometimes where people simply cannot hear you, just have to rejoin. And then it works again. So that's what I could kind of recommend. Just set up maybe weekly or bi-weekly calls or so, and just kind of get started, start having discussions, start like really, screen sharing process and get the hands dirty. And I think the Bitcoin UI kit is also a pretty good starting point, because then you don't have to focus, like set up everything from scratch. You just have something to go with. Yeah, and I can actually look back at that. We did lay out a call schedule where we had one topic for every single call, and that was helpful in getting the conversations going. Yeah, another like a first call might simply be to just have a more hands-on discussion, practical discussion, and screen share about the onboarding, specifically asking questions, going over each element, discussing what's happening, and maybe a designer or so wants to go and do some wireframes or so, and then next time you discuss that. Something like that is usually a pretty good way to go about things. How's Wisdom? Did you rejoin? If you'd like to say something.
Yeah,
You're also muted, Wisdom. Try unmuting.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I was actually speaking earlier. I don't know that I was not being heard. Well, but I heard everything everybody said, and I was just going to speak on the design area. So my suggestion would be and I think you've already touched on this, Justin, for us to like have a sort of breakdown on exactly how the process works, because I know design has to do with like really understanding what Fedimint is trying to create on a very granular level. So once that is done, I'm sure that we'll be able to figure out how the UI should look for each and every one of those modules you spoke about. I'm super stoked to see how this turns out. I really like the concept of federated relationships between nodes. So yeah, I like that concept already, and I'm already visualizing stuff in my head. So I would really love to see this become a reality UI wise, and see it work and work with the devs. So yeah, I'm on board already. I'm on board.
It's great to hear. So 4 minutes left. Jose, go ahead. Okay, sorry, you raised your hand.
Sorry, I was looking for a different interaction.
No worries. Okay, so let's try to lay out a call schedule. I think we could do that like after the call, or just coordinate on Slack or on. I think you guys do the posting on GitHub. So yeah, let's try to do that. I would suggest try to do one next week to take the next step, and then maybe have a call schedule by then that we can commit to, and I think we'll see a lot of, our developer calls usually have like 15, 20 people, so I think a few more of them might show up, and yeah, that'll be really exciting.
Awesome. Should we wrap it up for them? I know Mo has to head out. Mo, sorry, just a second. Mo has to head out. Mo, if you want to stop the recording and head out, I know you have to go, so please go do that, and everyone else can just keep chatting.
I'm going to stop the recording. Nice meeting you guys, and looking forward to working with you guys. Cheers. I'm just going to stop this recording, and Christoph, you will take over. Yep.